Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I'm here with Ryan on our August 23rd post chat. So today we kind of started talking about eschatology, really. It's a word we'll define in the adult ed class, but a little bit of what is our view of Christian hope, let's say that. What is our view of Christian hope and what is it we're hoping in? What do you feel like some of the application is? That's the purpose of this video. What do you think some of the application is as we walk away from that?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started looking, and just for myself, of going, well, why doesn't God just fix this all now? It takes me to ask myself a lot more questions. So one of the takeaways is why would God involve us? Right?
Yeah.
Why would he invite us to be a part of that process?
Yeah.
What is the process?
Yeah.
And really ultimately, like, what does it look like that the seed, the kingdom, is growing, and what is God redeeming? So I think those are, first I ask a lot of those types of questions. But the application for anybody who's watching is like, you know, wow, taking a step back and taking that big macro view that can really bring a lot of hope that actually God is doing much more than sometimes just right in front of us looks like.
Yeah. I think it's so important because I think when we talk about the work of Christ and the work of the cross, we can just individualize it that it's just about me getting my ticket to heaven. That's it.
Correct. Yeah.
But it is so much bigger than that, and I think you did a good job of bringing that up. You know, I think what it does, and the significant application is it changes our perspective for every day, right? What you see as your Christian hope in what God is doing and what the future holds changes what I do today based on that perspective. And I think I love the illustration you gave at the end with the cleanup that happened here. And I know a lot of you were down here the next day. And you're so right. I mean, the cleanup must have been faster than the destruction the night before. And, but you have two views on that, right? You see the state of the world, and you could say, well, it's escapism. I've got my ticket out. I'm, you know, I know where I'm going when I die. None of this matters. So, you know, let it burn, kind of thing, right? Or you have this hope in God's faithfulness to this creation, that what he started, he's not going to abandon.
No.
And then you're down the next morning cleaning and doing what you can towards that restoration.
Yeah, and I think that the important thing, Philippians says it really well. Paul ultimately kind of quotes God in a way and says he will finish the work he started.
Yeah.
And I think some of us in here, like, you know, now maybe go, wow, like, is God ever going to finish the work he started? But if God makes a promise, he will fulfill that promise.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that if God's going to fulfill this promise, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Just like the cleanup. It's so funny. That cleanup, Chad, like I connected with different people from Long Beach. I got to know other people, different walks of life, and everyone coming around going, wow, like, let's do something like better than that.
Yeah.
And it was fast. I mean, we were looking for places to
It was
clean.
difficult to find something to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what, like, we're called to do, which is to, and more as the seed grows and grows, it becomes the greatest. That's what we want to have happen, is that more and more believers are going, like, there's something more and better than this. And that was the community coming together for its city, but really it is on a greater scale for Christians to come together for the greater redemption of the world.
Yeah.
God's invited us to be a part of.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about just another application piece of this, or an illustration, is if you ever have had a disagreement with someone, but it's near the end of your relationship with them. Here's what I mean. Like, if you ever have like a disagreement or like a bad conversation or whatever with a coworker, but you've already put in your 2 weeks notice, are you that compelled to fix that relationship? Or you're like, I don't know, man, whatever. We'll you know, I'm not gonna see you ever again. You know, it's the last day of school and you get in some argument and you're just like, whatever, I'm going off to college the next day, you know, whatever. versus if it's like with a family member, even extended family member, you're like, oh man, if I don't repair this, Thanksgiving's going to be so awkward, you know? And that's almost that, I think, what the change in perspective can do is if you see that God is still committed to this earth and that you are still committed to this earth and to these people and to this creation, well, then it changes like, well, if we're gonna be here, I'm gonna be a part of its restoration. I'm committed to its health.
I love it that you use the family example, because that's why, like, God's image-bearing people, creation, essentially as God's family, and us as believers in the language of being brothers and sisters and father, and you look at that and you go, like the same thing, like, we shouldn't push away from each other. We're with each other. We are image bearers of God. And so for us, it is that commitment to the bigger thing versus just my immediate family. We have our brothers and sisters, you know, and that's what we're called to do. And that is sometimes you gotta make the peace to get there. Because you're right, the family reunion can be awkward.
Exactly, and that's what today really is. It was a very strong and large theological claim being made, but when you make that claim, it then has practical application effects on everyday life. It's just, do you look around and say, you know, Christ, you know, John the Baptist came saying the kingdom of heaven is here. If it's still here, if it's still moving, you know, am I committed to its mission, or am I saying, whatever, I know where I go, where I die, and I'm done? So it does. It changes our outlook every day.
And I'd say for everybody like listening, like in Matthew 13 is important, because we're not meant to stand idly by. And I wouldn't say get a megaphone and cast seed that way, because most definitely it will land on hard ground. And but I'm talking about that time, long invested relationships, or just a kind-heartedness that softens the ground and allows someone to receive good news. And good news, honestly, can be what Paul said in that in the Corinthians passage, when he says, good news is your salvation, and the good news is Jesus coming to die for your sins, making you right with God, and then starting to restore the world. Wouldn't you want to be a part of that? And I think that's as simple as the casting the seed for some people. And we can't shy away from that. It's important.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And stay on, and you can click through to the adult ed, or if not, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.